The train rattled through the open land like it had somewhere urgent to be, though the wide plains stretched on without hurry. Dust lifted in soft clouds behind it, and the late afternoon sun turned everything gold, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Inside one of the worn wooden cars, a young woman sat stiffly by the window, her hands folded tight in her lap, as though she feared they might betray her if left alone. She kept her eyes low, watching the faint tremble of her dress with every bump of the track. The fabric was neat, carefully chosen, but it could not hide the tiredness in her posture or the weight she carried in her silence. Anyone looking close enough would see it, the kind of quiet shame that did not need words. She was going home, but not in the way she once dreamed. The other passengers minded their own business, as people often did when they sensed trouble that was not theirs. A man coughed near the back. A child whispered to his mother. The steady rhythm of the train filled the space between strangers who had no wish to become anything more. At the next stop, the train slowed with a long sigh, wheels grinding against steel. A few passengers stepped off, and a few climbed aboard. Among them was a cowboy, broad-shouldered and dust-covered, his hat low over his brow. He moved with the ease of someone used to long roads and longer silences. His boots struck the wooden floor with a quiet certainty as he walked down the aisle, eyes scanning for a place to sit. And there were other empty seats, plenty, in fact. But for reasons no one could quite explain, he stopped beside her. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, his voice calm, carrying the rough edge of wind and open land. She hesitated just for a second before giving a small nod. "No." He sat down beside her, setting a worn leather bag at his feet. For a while, neither of them spoke. The train lurched forward again, pulling them back into its steady rhythm, as if the moment had passed without meaning. But something had changed. She could feel his presence, not in a way that frightened her, but in a way that unsettled her thoughts. It had been a long time since anyone chose to sit beside her without being told. Most people avoided what they did not understand, and she had become something of a question no one wanted to ask. "You're heading far?" he said after a while, not looking directly at her. She swallowed before answering. "Far enough," he gave a small nod as if that was answer enough. His hands rested on his knees, rough and steady, the kind that had seen hard work and harder days. There was no judgment in his voice, no curiosity that pushed too far. Just a simple question asked and left alone. Still, it made something stir in her chest. The land outside rolled by in quiet stretches, broken only by fences and distant hills. It was the kind of place where stories stayed buried unless someone dug them up. She wondered, not for the first time, if hers would follow her all the way home. "You don't look like someone eager to get there," he said softly. Her breath caught. She turned slightly, just enough to glance at him, but not enough to fully meet his eyes. "What makes you say that?" He shrugged, a faint hint of a smile touching his lips. "I've seen folks go home. Usually they look lighter, not heavier." She looked away again, her fingers tightening. For a moment, it seemed like she might say something more. The truth hovered close, just at the edge of being spoken. Then the train gave a sudden jolt, sharper than the rest, and somewhere up ahead, voices began to rise. The cowboy's expression changed, just slightly, as he lifted his head. And before she could gather her thoughts, the door at the front of the car swung open with a force that made every passenger turn to look. The sudden noise carried through the car like a crack of thunder. A man stumbled in from the front, gripping the doorframe as if the ground beneath him would not hold steady. His hat was gone, his hair damp with sweat, and his eyes moved fast, searching every face as though he had lost something he could not afford to lose. The conductor followed close behind, his voice tight but controlled. "Everyone stay seated. No trouble if there's no reason for it." His gaze swept the car, pausing longer than needed on each passenger, measuring them in a way that made the air feel thinner. The young woman felt her chest tighten. She lowered her head again, hoping to disappear into the stillness she had built around herself. Trouble had a way of finding her even when she kept quiet. It always had. Beside her, the cowboy did not move much, but there was a shift in him. His shoulders squared just a little, his eyes sharper now as they followed the man who had burst in. He did not look surprised, only alert, like someone who had seen this kind of moment before and knew better than to ignore it. The man in the doorway pointed toward the back of the car. "He's here." "I know he is." His voice shook, though whether from anger or fear was hard to tell. "Ticket clerk said he got on this train. Said he didn't look like much, but neither do snakes till they bite." A murmur passed through the passengers. People shifted in their seats, some turning away, others leaning forward just enough to watch without being noticed. The kind of tension that made strangers suddenly aware of each other. The conductor raised a hand. "You'll keep your voice down. We'll sort it proper." But the man did not lower his arm. His eyes kept moving, restless, landing for a moment on the young woman before sliding past her. She felt it, that brief pause, like a shadow brushing against her. Her fingers curled tighter in her lap. "You don't understand," he said, his voice lower now but no less urgent. "Someone took something from me. Something important. I aim to get it back before this train reaches the next town." The cowboy leaned back slightly, his gaze steady. "Lots of folks lose things," he said in an even tone. "Doesn't mean you start pointing at every face you see." The man turned toward him, narrowing his eyes. "And who asked you?" "No one," the cowboy replied, calm as before. "Just seems like a man ought to be sure before he stirs up a car full of people." For a second, it looked like the man might argue further, but the conductor stepped in, placing himself between them. "That's enough. We'll check tickets and baggage if we have to. No need for shouting." The tension eased just a little, but not enough to settle anything. The man lowered his arm, though his eyes kept searching, as if he believed the truth was sitting right in front of him, hiding in plain sight. The young woman swallowed hard. Her thoughts began to race, pulling her back to the reason she was on this train in the first place. The hurried departure. The whispers she had left behind. The feeling that she had not only been running from a place, but from something that might still be following her. "You all right?" the cowboy asked quietly, his voice meant only for her. She nodded, though it was not entirely true. "I just want to reach home," she said, barely above a whisper. He studied her for a moment, not pressing, but not entirely convinced either. "Sometimes home ain't waiting the way we expect," he said. She looked down, her throat tightening. "I know." Outside, the sky had begun to fade, the gold giving way to deeper shades as evening crept closer. The train pressed on, carrying them all toward something none of them could quite see yet. Up ahead, the conductor began moving down the aisle, checking tickets one by one. The man who had caused the commotion followed a few steps behind, watching closely, his suspicion hanging in the air like a storm that had not yet broken. When they drew nearer, the young woman felt her heartbeat quicken. She reached for her small bag, her fingers brushing against something hidden inside. For a moment she hesitated, as if even touching it might draw attention. Beside her, the cowboy noticed. And just as the conductor stopped in front of them, asking for their tickets, the man's voice cut through again, sharper this time. "Wait," he said, pointing. His gaze locked, not on the cowboy, but on her. The man's finger stayed fixed on her, steady now, certain. "That's her," he said, his voice no longer shaking. "She's the one." The words landed hard in the quiet car. Every small sound seemed to fall away, leaving only the rhythm of the train beneath them. The young woman felt the weight of every eye turned toward her, though she did not lift her head. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap, and she pressed them together to still them. "I think you've got the wrong person," the conductor said, though his tone held less confidence than before. He glanced at her, then back at the man. "Let's not rush into accusations. I know what I saw," the man insisted, stepping closer. "She was near the station when it happened. Kept her face low, just like now. And then she was gone before I could ask questions." His gaze hardened. "Now here she is, heading out without so much as a word." The cowboy shifted beside her, his posture changing in a way that was quiet but firm. "You're making a leap," he said. "Being near a place don't make someone guilty of anything." The man gave a short, humorless laugh. "Funny how you're quick to speak for her. Funny how you're quick to blame her," the cowboy replied, his voice still calm but edged now. The conductor raised a hand again. "Enough, miss, I'll need to see your ticket." For a moment she did not move. Then slowly, as if each motion took effort, she reached into her bag and pulled out the folded paper. Her fingers brushed past the hidden object again, and she felt a sharp twist of worry. She handed the ticket over without meeting anyone's eyes. The conductor checked